Hello guys, this is my first video on OSI models. In this series, we'll be discussing about all basic concepts about networks and ethical hacking and what skills we need to become security professionals in the future. So I am a cyber security specialist. I work for an internet company. In this, yeah, uh, we'll quickly go through different layers. So OSI basically stands for Open System Interconnection. We know that, and it's basically describes how software or a machine communicates with other machine. So basically, for example, assume that you send a WhatsApp message. Have you ever wondered like how it travels and how it will appear on the other person's screen? So this message basically go through these all layers before reaching the destination. So we'll discuss that. We'll take a real-time example and we'll understand this practically how the model actually works. Basically, here you can see that OSI consists of 7 layers. We can see that in the table. Each layer performs a particular network function. So we have 7 layers. So physical layers performs a different function. We have transport, we have session. Each they are segmented so that like they perform their own function. They are assigned with a particular function. So here we can see that like we have 7 layers. One is physical layer. This is the lowermost layer. We have data link layer. We have network layer. We have transport layer. We have session layer. We have presentation layer, and we have application layer. So upper layers of OSI model, that is application, presentation, session, and transport, mainly deals with application related issues, and they're implemented in the software. So these things, transport, session, and presentation and application, these are implemented in the software. And uh, we have other 3 layers: data link and physical. These are mainly like hardware. They are implemented in the hardware. For example, we can see that this, for data link we have a switch. For physical layer we have cables. These are all hardwares. So we'll go one by one. First, we'll explain we'll give a basic concept about what these layers do, what these layers do. In the next lecture, I will explain each layer in detail. So in this lecture, actually, we'll briefly explain like what is this and what are the devices used in the different layers, what is the protocol used, what are the data units, what attacks can be performed on different layers of the OSI model. So we'll start with the physical layer. Physical layer is mainly responsible for placing the information on the physical medium. So the physical medium may be a cable or it may be a wireless hardware. Uh, the main functionality of the physical layer is to transmit the individual bits from one node to another node. So it basically transfers the data from one node to another node within the network. Next, we have a data link layer. Before that, like we'll just go through devices and protocols on physical layers. So protocols used in physical layers are Cat5 and RJ54. And the data in this physical layer is called a bit. So we know that like anything you type, for example, if you type hello in WhatsApp, it will, for example, it will come from application layer. So WhatsApp is an application. So it comes from here and it will get encrypted, and it will go to session layer, it will go to transport layer, it will go to network layer, it will go to data link layer. At the physical layer, it will be converted into bits so that like it will be traveled in the physical medium, such as cables or wireless devices. So for data unit, like how the data transfer happens, we'll see that in the detail in the next lectures. And the attack that can be performed on this layer is data snipping. So we know that like data travels on a physical medium. For example, cables or a wireless for wireless network, it will go as a radio signals. So data snipping mainly concentrates on like getting that data. So maybe for example, like you send a message, WhatsApp message from your mobile. So from your mobile, it will be converted and it will travel as a radio signal. So data sniffing mainly concentrates on getting the data uh, like in the physical medium and like decrypting that and to get the valuable information from that. So we'll explain like what is data sniffing, how we can like crack passwords, WPA2 and WEP. So we'll discuss all the things, all the attacks in detail in the next lecture. For this lecture, we'll know like physical layers. We can do a data snipping attack. Yeah, we'll go to data link layer. Data link layer. This layer is responsible for error-free transfer of data frames. It is mainly responsible for unique identification of each device that resides on the local network. So we know actually it manages a physical addressing, that is a MAC address, media access control address. So we know every hardware will have a MAC address. So that is the physical address that actually that cannot be changed. We know IP address can be changed. It will be allocated dynamically sometimes using the DHCP, but physical address will remain same. The MAC address is also known as hardware number. In particular, each computer network interface card, including Bluetooth, Wi-Fi cards, has an unchained MAC address inserted by the manufacturer of that product. While doing the production of the hardware device, the manufacturer will insert that number. So that is called a MAC address. And the devices on data link layer are switch and bridge. Uh, we'll explain in detail like in next lecture what is switch, what is bridge. It basically connects data and transfers the data to a different node in the data link layer. Protocols used are Wi-Fi and we have triple P. We'll see that in the detail. And data in this data link layer is called a frame. In physical layer, we call it as a bit, and in data link layer, we call it as a frame. And the attack that can be performed on data link layer is called ARP spoofing. So ARP stands for Address Resolution Protocol. We'll see what is ARP spoofing in our next lecture. So we have a third layer, a network layer. Network layer adds a source address add to the header of the frame. Addressing used to identify the device on the internet. So this basically adds IP address to the packet. We call a here we call like data as a packet. So it basically adds IP address of the destination machine and the source machine to the packet. So the devices used in network layer are routers. So we know like we'll in home we use the router. So it basically routes the data to the destination. Actually, we'll see this in detail, like how, for example, you type www.google.com in your machine, how the actual data transfer happens. And you type that some data comes up right on the machine, on the Chrome, that is the application layer. So actually how the data travels through these 7 layers and like actually how this data travels through these different devices, like how the data is shown on a computer whenever we type something. So we'll discuss that in detail actually. So that is really important to understand. If you understand that thing, definitely these things will be easy. For example, like if anyone asks a question, like you send an email. So how the data transfer happens? We know like we send hello, okay, we click on send button. So actually how the data transfers from that emailing and from that mobile or a computer to other person's mobile or a computer, how this one actually happens, we'll see that in the detail. So there for that, like we need to understand what is DNS system and uh, like how the actually different devices are networks. Uh, we'll see that in the detail in the future. So protocols used are mainly we use the IP, Internet Protocol, use ICMP. Uh, Protocols are used on network layer. And we know a packet data is called as packet in network layer. Different types of attacks includes IP spoofing, and we have many different types of attacks. We'll discuss that. So IP spoofing, we know like, for example, I send an email with the whenever I send an email, like it will have my IP address has a in the network layer has a source. So in IP spoofing, what they do is like they change that IP so that they try to pretend to be someone else. We'll see that in the later stage. And fourth layer, we have transport layer. We can call it as the heart of OSI model. Uh, this is like a really important layer. It mainly ensures messages are transmitted in order in which they are sent and there is no duplication of data. So this is the main work of a transport layer. And devices used is firewall. We know what is firewall. Definitely we'll do a session on firewall. So this is really a important device, firewall. So most of the organizations use this to block incoming and outgoing traffic, to filter out the traffic with the firewall. So it's definitely we should definitely know about the firewall to be a cybersecurity specialist. And the protocols used are TCP and UDP. Uh, we'll explain about like protocol, like we'll see that in the detail. And the data is called as a segment for TCP and datagram for UDP. And attacks here include SYN-fold attacks. Uh, we know this is the SYN means here synchronization bit. This comes under three-way handshake protocol. We'll explain that also in the later stage. We have a session layer. So this layer is used to establish, maintain, synchronizes the interaction between communicating devices. It mainly maintains the session. So devices used are gateway protocols, HTTP, SMTP. We have different types of protocols used here, and actually data is called as a message. So attacks here include MITM. This is man in middle attack, and we use a session hijacking. We'll see that like we will see all these attacks using the tool called operating system called Kali Linux. It will have an inbuilt tool to test these all attacks. Next, we have a presentation layer. It is mainly considered. So the presentation layer is mainly concerned with the syntax and semantics of the information exchange between two systems. So, for example, like uh, you send a message, hello. Like WhatsApp is end-to-end encrypted. So in the presentation layer, in application layer, you send a message, hello. In presentation layer, it will get encrypted. So WhatsApp is end-to-end encryption, so it will get encrypted in this layer, presentation layer. So basically, encryption and decryption and compression happens at this layer. The protocols are HTTP, SMTP, and we have many other protocols. We'll discuss that in the later stage. Uh, Attacks, we use SSL hijacking, and like uh, we have many other attacks. We'll explain that. Application layer, this is sits at level 7. The top of open system interconnection communication model. It ensures an application can effectively communicate with other applications on different computer systems and network. The application layer is not an application. Actually, this is the name is a little confusing. Application layer is not application. It is the seventh layer. So this is basically interface, we can call it. For example, you open an Gmail, you try to send an email. So actually, the Gmail interface comes on application layer. So we have different types of protocols. We have SSH, we have HTTPS. Definitely, we need to we need to know what is SSH and what is HTTPS. We'll do session on SSH definitely because SSH security shell is mainly used to access the servers from the computer. For example, if you want to access a remote server, definitely you have to do SSH to that server to access the interface, to access the server. So we'll see that we'll explain I'll show a real-time example of accessing the SSH server. So how we access that, like what are the different types of options available? We'll see that in detail. And here data is also called as the message. We have different types of attacks here. DDoS, we have denial of service, we have SQL injection, we have a cross-site scripting, we have a cross-site forgery attacks, and we have many other attacks here actually. So for attacks, what I will do is we'll install Kali Linux OS machine and we'll go through the tools and we'll go through the attacks. We'll do attack in real time. We'll take one vulnerable application and we'll explain I will explain how we can perform these different types of attacks. So that is the main goal of actually our uh, that is the main motto of this channel. We will mainly concentrate on the attacks. But why I'm explaining the basics is definitely we need the basics. So for example, like you take a Linux machine and you start doing data attack or SQL injection. If someone asks on what layer it works, like we should know on what layer the OSI is the actually basic model for everything. So as I mentioned, OSI is it tells how the data transferred between one machine to other machine. So that is very basic. So we should know this. This table we should at least know, what are layer names, devices, protocols, and data unit and attacks. So this is the basic. In next lecture, I will go deeper into each layer, physical layer. In that, I will explain data snipping attack using a Kali Linux machine. I will make a video on how to set up the lab for this so that we can see that in the real time. We'll just not go through a PPT and we'll not just look to the table, but we'll see how actually it works in real time. That is very important because we read this and we forget. But if you do it practically, definitely you'll remember that it will be useful in the future as well. So uh, I told you about network address and MAC address, that is IP address and MAC address. So I'll quickly show how to find MAC address on the Mac machine. I'll paste the description for finding the MAC address in Linux machine, Windows machines. I'll quickly show how we can do this on the Mac machine. To get hardware information, we can use this command. It will show all the hardwares on the machine and their associated MAC address. Here you can see that hardware port is Wi-Fi, a device name is the EN0, and it has a MAC address of this one. So we have different types of hardwares, they will have a different MAC address. And for finding the IP address, we can type the command ipconfig. So it will show our allocated IP. So I'll paste the link in the description so that you can refer to this. You can do the check in Windows, Linux machines, Mac machines as well. I'll just paste that in the description. Yeah, that's it for today's video. In next video, as I mentioned, will go through each layer and attacks in detail and in real time. If you have any questions, you can always contact me through this email. Please subscribe to watch the channel to watch the quality content. Thank you.